Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Casper.
Let's continue our 250 countdown. The moments in America sports where you can't define sports in America without these 250 moments. We got another group of 15. And again, like I said, I'm excited for this one because it's a wide mixture. It's moments, it's teams, it's plays, it's athletes, all the above. So let's start off with, and there's no, it's not just one sport. It's not going to be, it's just all baseball. No. We're all over the place here. We're all over the place on this one, which kind of makes it exciting too. But, okay, let's start off in the world of golf. We just got done with the U.S. Open, Wyndham Clark, right? So another major in the books for the PGA. The third major of the season is in the books. And I am actually going to go to the Masters. Back to 1997. Why does that one matter? A 21-year-old by the name of Tiger Woods made his first career major start as a pro. He also began his opening 9 holes 4 over par, shot a 40, 4 over par. But the man went on to win the tournament by a record 12 strokes. The beginning of the greatness of golf of Tiger Woods. Now, we have mentioned Tiger Woods already on our list just as the athlete, but this moment, this not just because of like the comeback and it was his first major title, but there was another significance to Tiger winning the Masters. He became the first black man to win a major. And remember, Augusta National, they did not admit its first black member until 1990. And this was 1997 when Tiger went in there and dominated the field. This was one of the most iconic. I have this cover. I don't know why. So when I was a kid, my grandma had a Sports Illustrated subscription for me. So the magazines would go to her house, and whenever I'd go to her house, depending on if it was every weekend, okay, there'd be one there, or if it was a couple weeks, I might have a couple there. But as I got older, I kept a lot of those Sports Illustrated. Don't know why, but I put them in my Ninja Turtle trunk, wooden trunk. Still have that. Really good shape, by the way. And I just kept some. And one of them was that. Was that Tiger Woods? I don't know why, but I kept it as a kid. I actually kept a couple of Tiger Woods, and they're now framed in my man cave. The one is actually his first appearance on Sports Illustrated's cover, but this one, because I could still remember it, and it's framed, but it came with like a paper cover over it for a subscription for, was it Golf Digest or maybe another golf thing? And then you took the paper cover off, and then it's Tiger winning the 97 Masters. I have that framed up in my man cave. One of the most iconic, iconic covers, but performances. And then that was kind of like the beginning of, hey, we got Tiger-proof courses. Tiger Woods is legit, man. So not just because it was his first start as a pro at a major, not just because, he started off 4 over through the first 9, what it meant from a culture standpoint, becoming the first black man to win a major at Augusta National after they just, 7 years prior admitted their first black member too. And to kind of add on to that for our second moment, it's Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in Major League Baseball in 1947. This is one of the top, if we were to rank this, and I'm not ranking them, but if we were to rank this would have been one of the first ones. When you talk about moments in sports, in America's 250th in America's 250 years, this is towards the top. With Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. Every year in baseball, Jackie Robinson Day. 42's retired. We know the story. We know the history, right? We know all this. But this is one of the most significant moments, pivotal moments, crucial moments in the game of baseball, but in sports history worldwide. I would argue worldwide, not just America. It happened in America, so that's why it's on his list, but worldwide. A lot of us know the battles, the uphill battles, the prejudice, the racism that Jackie had to endure in his career, and the courage and braveness. I know it's not a word, but his for him to go out there and to play in the face of all that hate too is, man, I can't even imagine what he and his family went through. You know, we hear about it, we read about it, we listen, we watch, watch the movie 42. But to actually go through it, I can't even imagine. You cannot tell the history without Jackie Robinson. And one more to add kind of to that same idea, Jesse Owens winning 4 gold medals at the 1936 Olympics in front of Adolf Hitler. Again, facing racism at home and abroad. Adolf Hitler, we know that history too. But Jesse Owens going there in the Olympics. Somebody who could say, I don't want to deal with that. And goes and wins 4 gold medals. When you talk about track and field history, Jesse Owens, I think if you ask a lot of people, hey, name me a track and field star or name me a track and field person, there's going to be a lot of names. There's going to be Carl Lewis. There's going to be Michael Johnson. You're going to throw Kenny Bednarik in here because of a local representation. You're going to throw Michael Phelps swimming, my bad. But you're going to throw a lot of names in there. Jesse Owens is going to be in there too, even though it was nearly 100 years ago. I'm talking 90 years ago. People still know Jesse Owens and the impact that he made in the Olympics, but in the world. Let's go next up. Where do I want to go for my next one? Tell you what, let's do... Yeah, I had this one on it was one of the first things I had on my list, and this is one that I got to watch live. It is one of the most iconic images in all of sports. It is, for some, one of the most controversial plays in all of sports, depending on if you were a fan of his or not. Michael Jordan's final shot is a Chicago Bull. The 90, that season, that series, Jordan, Russell's on him. We knew it was going to be, that was the talk at that point. It had a good idea it was the last dance. And for those of you who was like, what was controversial about it? Did he push Russell? You got the replay, the crossover, the hand kind of is on Russell's back. It looks like he, gets pushed down or slips. Jordan pull up. It's one of the most iconic images in all of sports from the behind angle, making that jumper. Wins the 6th title of his career. If you were to put, this would be a really cool one if we had like a digital series, or if somebody did, and it could easily be done. We could probably go through a list, but I'd want the visuals to this. If you could put a list of the 250th or 250 most iconic sports images of all time, this would be on there. Muhammad Ali would be on there. Tiger Woods would be on there. Lou Gehrig. I mean, there's so many images of sports that are just like, that one would be really hard. But this, from a play standpoint, historical, I mean, you got to go with Jordan's final shot. And I remember watching as a kid, and I was cheering hard for the Jazz because I was probably the weirdo kid that was not a Jordan fan, was not a Bulls fan, not because the Bulls were in the same division as the Bucks, but he just kept winning. It was a jealousy part, like a lot of things for us, and we still go through that as adults. You don't like Tom Brady because he wins. You don't like Patrick Mahomes because they win. Maybe other reasons too, but that's what it boils down to, doesn't it? Now I appreciate the heck out of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Let's do the next one here. Yeah, I'm going to go a couple. Speaking of maybe players you didn't like or teams you didn't like, I'm just going to knock these two out because you can't tell the history of the NFL without it. But I'm going to go Patriots making that 28-3 comeback in the Super Bowl against the Falcons. I mean, anybody who was watching that game, Atlanta had it. 25-point lead late in the game. And then they got going. Patriots got going. And then you just knew it was going to happen, right? I think everybody watching that game, that Super Bowl 51, just like, oh, man, they're going to do it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. The you could just tell. Was it a sack on Matt Ryan when they should have probably ran it? It's like, oh, no, they're going to do this. The Patriots of all teams, Brady and Belichick, they're going to do it. Yep. Sure enough, they did. So I threw that one in there, but I also threw in, because this was just a good game, and it's an iconic play in Super Bowl history. Patriots Seahawks, Malcolm Butler, the interception. You don't have to like either one of those teams. I don't like either one of those teams. But that was a hell of a Super Bowl, and that was a hell of a game. So you can't deny that. You can't deny that play. As boneheaded of a play call as it was for the Seahawks, it was still a fantastic play by Malcolm Butler. I don't think anybody in the world thought that was going to happen. I didn't. Speaking of the Seahawks, I'm sorry, Packers fans, but I got to throw this one in here because it's a part of history, and it's going to be talked about, and it will be continued to be talked about for a while, and maybe it's brought up lightly here, some bad memories because of the NFL and officials and negotiations and such, but we got to throw the Hail Mary in there. You want to talk about one of the most iconic images in all sports? There you go. MD Jennings, Golden Tate. One official signals touchdown. One official, nope. And the mess that came after that. That was the tipping point of the ugly strike of NFL officials in the NFL deciding to, we can get by with replacement officials. Nope. A few days later, they came to an agreement, and the real ones were back. So you got it, as painful as it is for us as Packers fans. We got to throw that one in there too. We're going to go to the, NFL. Stay with the NFL. And you can't, because right now, and maybe it changes. Like in 50 years, if we did another one of these, where it was a top 300, maybe a team kind of takes this one out. But you look at the NFL's history, there's the 72 Dolphins. It gets brought up every year. After the last undefeated team loses, what gets referenced? It's the 72 Dolphins. The 72 Dolphins can crack the champagne. Patriots got close, right, in 07, 08. Close to being 19-0. But it's the 72 Dolphins that stand alone. Undefeated team. Only undefeated team in NFL history. So when you talk about NFL history and you talk about the only undefeated team, you got to throw them in here as part of our 250 countdown. It just, you have to. You have to. I'm going to save this one for the last one. Let's go then switch into an athlete. Horse racing. I know there's probably not going to be a lot of mention on here, but Secretariat, the domination that horse had. The Belmont Stakes in 1973, winning by 31 lengths. Widely considered the greatest race ever run by a thoroughbred racehorse. Triple Crown winner. Record, I mean, that Belmont Stakes, that record-breaking Belmont Stakes race. I think when you ask a lot of people, and I'm not the biggest horse racing expert fan, but it's one of those where you know the name. Right? We talk about this for a lot of athletes and maybe some non-traditional sports outside of baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer. Or even like soccer to a point from a worldwide standpoint. I'm not the biggest soccer fan, but I know who Messi is. I know Ronaldo. But I don't know a lot about horse racing. But you know who Secretariat is, and you know that was a dominant horse, dominating horse. So when you talk about the history of horse racing in America from the last 250 years, you got to talk about Secretariat. And you got to talk about that 1973 Belmont Stakes race, winning by 31 lengths. And when you talk about it, and if it is, in fact, considered the greatest race ever run by a thoroughbred racehorse, you got to throw that in there. My next one, then, I am going to go... we'll go over the tennis world, because I think this was a big moment in tennis's history, but in the history of sports in America and from a culture standpoint. The battle of the sexes, Billie Jean King versus Bobby Riggs. It was actually the second one, because the first one happened on May 13th, 1973. Bobby Riggs defeated Margaret Court in 2 sets. Billie Jean King, though, defeated Bobby Riggs in 3 straight sets on September 20th, 1973 at the Astrodome in Houston, Texas. The match was viewed by an estimated 50 million people in the United States and 90 million worldwide, and it is considered, with King's victory, as a milestone in public acceptance of women's tennis. I remember watching as a kid, I think it was a made-for-TV movie about this. And it's one of those, too, that I think a lot of fans know about this. They may not be the biggest tennis fans, which is a theme for a lot of these. But that's why, in my opinion, they're some of the biggest sports moments in American history. Even if you're not a big fan of that particular sport, but you know about that certain athlete, or you know about that game or that play or that moment, that's a pivotal moment in history, and that's a pivotal moment in that sports history, and that's the case for this. Billie Jean King defeating Bobby Riggs. I knew about it as a kid. Wasn't a big tennis fan. But it's definitely a critical and crucial moment in the sports world. I'm going to go kind of, again, sticking with the Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding, I guess, ordeal. We all kind of know the history of this, right? I mean, it's the early 90s and the Olympics, the rivalry between the two, where Nancy Kerrigan was attacked after practice, biggest sports scandals, Tanya Harding. It was just, yeah. We know the whole history about it. We know the story behind it. It was one day before the U.S. Figure Skating Championship. Nancy Kerrigan was attacked in a corridor after a practice session. The aftermath of the attack recorded on a news camera. I can still picture the video. You can go on YouTube. But the assailant, Shane Stantz, was contracted to break her right knee. He turned himself to the FBI. Stantz and his uncle were hired for this assault by Tanya Harding's ex-husband and her bodyguard. After failing to find Kerrigan in Massachusetts, they had taken a 20-hour bus trip to Detroit. Nancy Kerrigan was walking behind a curtain when Stantz rushed behind her. Using both hands, he swung a 21-inch telescopic baton at her right leg, striking above the knee. The attack was intended to seriously injure Kerrigan so that she could not compete in the Nationals nor the Winter Olympics. Kerrigan's leg was not broken, but was severely bruised, forcing her to withdraw from the championships and forego competition or forego competing to retain the U.S. ladies title. Tanya Harding won the U.S. title. She and Kerrigan were then both selected for the '84 Olympic team. Yeah. And then on January 18th, 1994, Harding was with her lawyers when she submitted to questioning by the FBI. She was interviewed for over 10 hours. 8 hours into the interview, her lawyer read a statement declaring her separation from her ex-husband. Blah, 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 blah. We all know that. Yeah. We know the scandal. We know the story. We know all that. Harding at one said that she was sorry Kerrigan was attacked, that she respected Kerrigan and claimed not to have known in advance of the plot to disable her. Harding took responsibility for failing to report things about the assault when I returned home from Nationals. Failure to immediately report this information is not a crime, according to her statement. So, yeah. Got to throw that one in there. What else? We mentioned him as part of our athlete, but it is, again, one of those moments, I think, in sports where you know or you remember where you were when you hurt. And it's the crash and the passing of Dale Earnhardt. I wasn't the biggest racing fan. I wasn't, I knew who Dale Earnhardt was. I knew who Jeff Gordon was. I knew who Rusty Wallace was. I knew who Mark Martin, Dale Jarrett, etc. I knew a lot of those racers. But I still remember that Sunday coming home and turning on the TV, and it was all over. And just the feeling of like, what? How does this happen? How does this happen? And I knew I had friends who were big NASCAR fans and big Dale Earnhardt fans. And I just remember the day after, too, seeing them in school. I was in high school. And it was just one of those moments that I think you kind of remember where you're at when you first found out. And I remember walking into my home, just turning on a TV, turning on ESPN, and obviously that was the main story. So I think, from and it changed, NASCAR and that, but you're talking about arguably one of the best, if not the best driver in their history, passing away in an accident on the biggest stage at the Daytona 500. Really quick, I want to go back to the Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan one. I forgot to mention this too. So just to clear it up, 94, Harding accepted a plea agreement admitting she helped cover up a crime after it occurred. And then in 2018, in an interview to ABC, she confessed for the first time that she had an inkling of the plan before the 94 Olympics. She admitted to overhearing her ex-husband and others speculating about taking somebody out so that she can make the Olympic team, though she never explicitly confessed to directly taking part in planning the assault. So I wanted to throw that in there to clarify it. All right, we got three more here. I think from just a player standpoint, I'm going to make this one quick because they're still playing. Shohei Ohtani. For so much. You're talking about, for a lot of us, who's the guy that he gets compared to? Babe Ruth, because he hits dingers and he's a pitcher. You're not supposed to do this in baseball. You're supposed to be one or the other. You can't be a DH, a really good offensive player, and then every 5 days be a really good starting pitcher. Because now in baseball, or at least it still is, you either got to be a pitcher and focus just on that, or you got to focus on being a position player and a really good offensive player. You can't have both. Ohtani said, hold my beer, hold my bat, watch me, and I will succeed. And I think there was talk at the beginning of the whole thing when his career started. Like, that ain't going to work. Eventually he's going to be, probably a DH or a hitter. Or he's got to focus on one thing. Eventually he's got to focus on one thing. Even with a Tommy John surgery and that, dude's amazing. And maybe we are witnessing one of the best baseball players of all time right in front of our eyes. Don Larsen's perfect game in the World Series. Perfect games, I think, are still one of the most awesome things in the world of sports. But to throw a perfect game in the World Series, that has got to be one of the most awesome things to have on your resume. To throw a perfect game. Game 5 of the 56 World Series. It remained up until Roy Halladay threw a no-hitter against the Cincinnati Reds in the postseason in 2010. But his perfect game remained the only no-hitter of any type pitched in the postseason until Roy Halladay did that. It still gets mentioned to this day. So, Don Larsen's World Series perfect game. Finally, really quick, I'm putting the home run chase, whatever you want to call it, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa in the 90s. Because we know what transpired afterwards. But that got a lot of people excited for baseball again. Yours truly. It drew people in. It was a big thing, the home run chase. For some people, for a lot of people actually, they'd say it might have saved baseball. But then the ramifications, the news, the stories that come out afterwards, I'm lumping this all into one thing because I think you have to. That is the whole story. The home run chase of the 90s and then the aftermath of it all. The debates that still continue. Should this person be in the Hall of Fame? Should that person be in the Hall of Fame? I've always been a person saying when it comes to a player or a person's eligibility for the Hall of Fame, if you can't tell you got to be able to tell. If you can't tell the history of this person or this thing, then yeah, they should be a Hall of Famer. This is a little bit different maybe because you can't really tell the history of baseball without mentioning the mid-90s home run chase with McGwire, Sosa, and even Griffey Jr. was like a part of this thing. But McGwire and Sosa, back and forth, and then the aftermath of those two, finding out what happened, the steroids. It was a huge moment in the history of baseball. It changed baseball in so many different ways, but it got people to tune in. It got me to tune in, and I know it got a lot of others to tune in too. You can't tell the history without mentioning that. All right, so that's the latest installment of our Top 250 Countdown.